Hello again. In this video, I'm going to do part 2 of March Madness, the signs they are changing. So give me a minute to share my screen and get everything set up. Okay. And I just need to hide a few panels here. All right. And now I can begin, and I'll start in mid-March with Mars square Neptune on March 14th. There's going to be a weekend mid-March, looks like about 5 days here, when Mars squares Neptune, and this will create a heightened risk for violence and fanaticism during this period. It's going to be a great time just to stay indoors and away from the malls. The square is going to be exact on March 14th, 2023, and there will be a tense T-square involving the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Mars, and Neptune, and Pluto will add to these tensions by squaring Venus and the lunar nodes. And Jupiter and Chiron are still conjunct. Okay, March 14th, by the way, that is also Pi Day and Einstein's birthday. If we look at the astrological chart, sure enough, we have some strong squares from Mars to Neptune and also Sun and Mercury. The moon is going to be in opposition. Pluto is going to make a pretty strong square to Venus, lunar nodes, and Chiron and Jupiter are still within orb of being conjunct. So, as I say, it's a good day just to stay inside. The most intense day, though, may be March 16th, when the squares of Mars to the Sun, Mercury, and Neptune, and of Venus to Pluto are exact to the degree. Thus, there could be increased aggression during this month. At this time, and Jupiter conjunct Chiron could manifest first as wounding, in addition to bringing something quite transcendent to the world. If you look at the chart, just look how exact these aspects are. Mars at 25 plus degrees Gemini, Sun, Mercury, and Neptune all at 25 plus degrees Pisces. Very strong square. Also, Venus at 29 plus degrees Aries, Pluto at 29 plus degrees Capricorn. Yet another strong square, and Jupiter and Chiron still in a pretty tight conjunction. So, good time just to sit in front of the TV and watch Netflix all day long or all week long. But during this mid-March period, as I said, there's going to be a heightened risk of violence, aggression, wounding of some sort during this particular month. All right, shortly after that, in the July 1776 charts for America, on March 17th, we're going to have Chiron in opposition to natal Saturn. And previously, I showed the Sibley chart, the July 4th chart here. The inner wheel represents the July 2nd, 1776 chart for the passage of the Declaration, or I should call it the Resolution for Independence, as I like to call it. Now, when Chiron comes into opposition to Saturn in this chart for America, there could be some wounding or addressing of past actions, past karma. And we've been through this opposition before in the past year. It happened in late September 2022, and that was followed by Hurricane Ian, which did significant wounding to both structures and people in Florida. And then it also occurred in May 2022, right after the mass shootings at the top supermarket in Buffalo, New York, and right before the horrific school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. So we might experience some more wounding at this point in time. And I have natal Chiron enclosed in kind of a dash circle as a reminder that it won't be too long before we see a conjunction between transiting Chiron and natal Chiron. That could also bring about some more wounding. And here's something very interesting. What America is going through with Chiron now, we have seen previously in the years from 1972 to 1975. We first had a series of oppositions of transiting Chiron to natal Saturn, followed by a series of conjunctions of natal transiting Chiron to natal Chiron. And during this period of time, did we have some wounding? Well, yes, we did, in addition to the Vietnam War, which actually was kind of winding up. I think we withdrew troops in 73. But for the country domestically, we had the Watergate scandal during this period. That was a great wounding to American democracy, but it was also followed by something transcendent. I and many other people would probably say that Congress had one of its finest moments in the form of the Senate Select Committee to investigate the Watergate scandal. That is when our people in Congress and the Senate in particular really rose to the occasion. So we saw both wounding and some healing through people who transcended their petty desires and wants and needs and really did the right thing for the country. Also at this time in 1973, Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court made the law of the land a woman's right to have control over her own body. Now, the same configuration is repeating today. We have transiting Chiron in opposition to natal Saturn in a series of these in 2022 and 2023. They'll be followed in 2024, 2025 by a series of conjunctions of transiting Chiron with natal Chiron. In the summer of 2023, though, from about mid-May through a lot of September, transiting Chiron, it doesn't make an exact conjunction with natal Chiron, but it gets very close. We have a near miss of Chiron conjunct natal Chiron. And during this period, we have seen wounding of the country. The country was very wounded. Democracy was very wounded by the 2021 insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th. And there are astrological indicators, reasons for that happening on that date, but we still continue to be wounded. And we're seeing at the same time, Congress, many members of Congress, once again, transcending their individual wants and needs with the January 6th committee, which is helping hopefully to bring about some healing from this wounding. And in summer of this year, and during these periods in 2024, 2026, we may experience some additional wounding for the country, wounding, healing, or transcendence. And also during this period, Roe v. Wade again. Last year, the Supreme took away a woman's right to have control over her own body. So it's very interesting to me, but not at all unexpected to see similar political issues occurring during similar astrological configurations. And then on March 23rd, we have the long-awaited entry of Pluto into Aquarius. So let's take a good look at this. Now, when Pluto goes into Aquarius, this is a 21-year period in which we will likely see many new inventions and technologies and a transfer of power from individuals to the masses. The one thing that always seems to happen whenever Pluto moves from Capricorn into Aquarius is power is transferred from individuals to the people. And the ingress of Pluto into Aquarius on March 23rd, that's probably going to be intensified by the spring equinox on March 20th. And on March 20th, you can see Pluto, it's still in Capricorn, but it's just 3 degrees of arc away from entering Aquarius. Similarly, on March 21st, there is going to be a new moon, and this will probably also intensify things. On the new moon, Pluto is just 2 degrees, 2 months of arc away from entering Aquarius, and both the spring equinox and the new moon may be like a drum roll leading up to the main event. Also, some of the technologies that already appear to be on the horizon that are related to Pluto and being in Aquarius are clean nuclear fusion that can provide unlimited power, quantum computing, virtual reality, and artificial intelligence. Additionally, education has seen increased use of Zoom technology and online chat rooms for collaborative learning. For kids and from kindergarten through grade 12, it looks like education is finally figuring out how to do collaborative learning well and how to use technology well. And both of these things will continue probably to be developed as Pluto goes through Aquarius. The way in which kids are being taught today, it's very different from the way in which I was taught and the way in which I myself as a math teacher taught for several years. Now, since artificial intelligence is growing by leaps and bounds and has been in the news lately, I asked this free online artificial intelligence called ChatGPT. I asked it, what will happen when Pluto moves into Aquarius? And its answer was actually pretty good. So let me read through this. 1. Transformation and evolution. Pluto is often associated with deep transformation evolution, and its movement through Aquarius may bring about changes related to technology, social structures, and human connections. This may involve a shift towards more innovative and progressive ideas, as well as a breaking down of traditional power structures and hierarchies. 2. Intense growth and change. The energy of Pluto is intense, and its movement through Aquarius may bring about periods of upheaval and change. This may involve endings and beginnings, and may require individuals and society to adapt to new circumstances. 3. A focus on collective goals. Aquarius is associated with community, innovation, and collaboration. And as Pluto moves through the sign, there may be a greater emphasis on collective goals and working towards the greater good. This may involve a shift towards more democratic and participatory forms of governance and decision-making. In Aquarius, the emphasis is always on the group, democracy, group activity, and group decisions. But it's not all going to be fun and games. Pluto was last in Aquarius from 1778 through 1798, and this was the time of the American French revolutions that showed that power can reside with the people instead of a single individual. And whenever Pluto moves from Capricorn into Aquarius, Why is a shift of power to the people? And I find it interesting that at the time of the Declaration of Independence, Pluto was not yet in Aquarius. It was at about 27 degrees Capricorn. But right before it moved into Aquarius and shortly thereafter, uh, America began to form alliances with other countries. It formed an alliance with France, and France started a war with Great Britain. And then Spain joined in. Spain joined an alliance with France too to fight Great Britain. So the United States, France, and Spain, they were the NATO of that period, fighting against Great Britain. And today, there's also revolution going on, rather than being the American Revolution or the French Revolution. It's Pluto fighting for its freedom and independence from the aggression of Putin and Russia. And before we finish this presentation, we'll see more astrological indicators that tell us why it's happening in Europe now and why it's Russia and Ukraine. Okay, now, as I say, the current battle for freedom and democracy is between Ukraine and Russia, and Pluto's ingress into Aquarius favors Ukraine because Aquarius favors freedom and democracy, rule by the people rather than following the will of just a single individual. However, when Pluto moves back into Capricorn on June 11 for the rest of the year, the tide may turn back in Russia's favor for a while. Nonetheless, Pluto returns to Aquarius in January 2024, only briefly retrogrades into Capricorn from September 2024 until November 2024. And in America, Pluto in Aquarius will promote science and humanitarian concerns. But when it retrogrades back into Capricorn in fall 2024, this could influence the presidential election. Just as a retrograde Jupiter in Pisces favored a progressive candidate in 2020, Pluto back in Capricorn favors a candidate that appears either stronger, older, or more conservative. And I don't know who that's going to be because I don't really know who the candidates are yet. Conservative, that sounds like it favors the Republicans. Older, that sounds like it favors Biden. But we'll just have to wait and see who the candidates are and what's going on as we get closer to that election. And Pluto won't leave Aquarius for good until 2044, and much progress will likely be made in technology, democracy, and global cooperation by then. Okay, this is really interesting. Pluto will be in its retrograde zone for almost the entirety of 2023. It actually entered the retrograde zone on January 8th of this year. It won't leave until January 31st of next year. Furthermore, when it goes into Aquarius on March 23rd, it's going to spend all its time in Aquarius this year at 0+ degrees Aries. You can look up here, you can see it doesn't even get close to 1 degree Aries. And this is going to be extremely important due to past conjunctions at this longitude, which we're going to start looking at. Also, 0+ degrees Aquarius is a beginning of collaborative energies and a move away from authoritarianism, a planting of Aquarian seeds that will sprout over time. So just as Saturn spends about the next 3 years moving through Pisces, co-present with Neptune in Pisces, just as the next 3 years are a good time to try and bring your dreams into reality, to make them concrete, and to pray, meditate, and visualize world peace. When Pluto, during about the 2.5 months of this year that it spends at 0+ degrees Aquarius, this is a good time to plant seeds for this new Aquarian future. Think about the technologies, the freedoms, the democracy, the collaborative, creative ventures that you or perhaps you want to see the world engage in. Think about those things, visualize those things, plant those seeds so that they can become a reality, so that they can sprout over time. Okay, let's look at some of the past conjunctions at 0+ degrees Aquarius. The first one we'll look at happened on March 31st, 2020. The malefic planets Mars and Saturn were conjunct at this point. And what was the impact? Well, the pandemic started raging. The number of cases grew exponentially. This conjunction added a touch of aggression and restriction to this position, while also representing the global collaboration and aggressive science that occurred to combat the pandemic and to come up with effective vaccines. The next conjunction at this point was on December 21st, 2020, when Jupiter and Saturn were conjunct at 0+ degrees Aquarius. And while this conjunction happens every 20 years, this one was a mutation conjunction, since it signaled a shift to air signs after spending about 200 years in Earth signs. And with both Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto shifting from Earth into air, we're moving away from materialism, an age of materialism, into an age of ideas, invention, collaboration, and relationships. All of those things represented by the air signs of Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra. And so air signs are now going to lead the way, and they're going to be supported by air signs: Sagittarius, Aries, and Leo. Okay. Now, Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions, they always try to restore balance between growth and restriction, freedom and regulation. However, they have a long history of shaking things up in Europe. And so for the past several hundred years, these conjunctions have had a particular impact on European affairs, and this is one of the astrological reasons behind the war in Ukraine now. So there are other reasons too, and we're going to see them pretty soon. Now, on March 6, 2022, just last year, Venus and Mars were conjunct at 0+ degrees Aquarius. But earlier on March 3rd, there was a triple conjunction of Pluto, Mars, and Venus at 27+ degrees Capricorn. That's back in old authoritarian Capricorn, and that's also conjunct natal Pluto in those July 1776 charts. Well, I view the conjunction Capricorn in terms of Russia's recent invasion of Ukraine, of course, being conjunct our natal Pluto. We took the lead in opposing that. And I also see this conjunction on March 6, 2022 in Aquarius as representing the coordinated response of NATO. NATO because Aquarius represents group activity and collaboration. Now, as I've stated previously in my first video, part 1 of this video, much of what's happening now relates back to both the malevolent conjunction of Pluto and Saturn on January 12, 2020, shown in this chart, and the more beneficial mutation conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn on December 21st, 2020, which was also the winter solstice shown by this chart. Now let's look at some of the particular countries and people that are going to be affected by Pluto at 0+ degrees Aquarius this year. First, if we look at Russia's chart, which goes back to December 25th, 1991, after the breakup of the Soviet Union. In this chart, it has plus degrees ascendant. That's very close to the 0+ degrees Aquarius. So I expect Russia to be affected quite a bit by Pluto's 2.5-month transit at 0+ degrees Aquarius this year. Specifically, I anticipate America, NATO, and the European Union ramping up their support for Ukraine at this time. If we take another quick glance at Russia's chart, you see that you have Saturn in Aquarius in the 7th house. And this kind of tells us why Russia sees collaborative democracies as a negative, as somehow being restrictive in terms of the way that these countries interact with Russia. Okay. Now, if our chart for Putin is correct, remember that there has been some dispute over the birth date, time, and place for Putin, but this is the chart most people use, and it's been verified by Russian's webmaster, and I've seen it work pretty well. And so based upon this chart, while Pluto lingers at 0+ degrees Aquarius, that is going to put some increased pressure on Putin, since it will be making a moderately strong square to his ascendant and descendant. Also, both Putin and Russia will undergo hard aspects from Saturn, Chiron, and Uranus this year. And so I don't think Putin will be in power much longer. They're going to be hard aspects from Uranus to both Putin's chart and Russia's chart in the latter half of 2023. So that's when he might go out of power, or some sort of regime change might take place. I would certainly be glad to see Putin gone, but I worry about who or what might replace him. But we'll just have to wait and see. We might be able to hold on, but those astrological pressures will be there. Okay, now the period from March 23rd, 2023 to June 11th, 2023 will also likely be crucial for Ukraine, since it has natal Saturn at 1+ degrees Aquarius. The long-term prospects for freedom and democracy are good, but things may be difficult in the near future for Ukraine. And notice this: Ukraine, in its natal chart, it got its independence, became its own country again on August 24th, 1991. And in this chart, it has Saturn at 1 degree Aquarius. Russia's chart has 1 degree Aquarius on the descendant. Okay. This tells us specifically why Russia is going after Ukraine. Russia sees democratic countries as a threat to itself, since it has Saturn and Aquarius in its 7th house. And in particular, it sees the democratization of Ukraine as a threat. So this is a very strong sign as to why, when Putin, going back to that Pluto-Saturn conjunction in 2020, which was poking at him, stirring up his desires for expansion and to restore the old Soviet Union, why it wanted to go after Ukraine. Okay, now Pluto's 2023 sojourn through Aquarius will also likely be a critical time for Zelensky, since it's going to activate his Mars Sun Venus Chiron T-square. And additionally, he will have transiting Uranus in opposition to his natal Uranus on March 16th, 2023. So challenging times still lie ahead for the president of Ukraine. And if you look at this T-square in his birth chart, he has Mars at 0+ degrees, Leo exactly opposite where Pluto is going to be hanging out for 2.5 months this year at 0+ degrees Aquarius. And it's going to be strongly squared or squaring his Chiron at 1+ degree of Taurus. So this could be a very difficult year for Zelensky. Now, China could also be impacted by Pluto and Aquarius in 2023, since its natal chart has Moon at 1+ degrees of Aquarius, and since the Moon represents the people, it's in the second house, rules the 8th house, China may experience some internal rebellion, more deaths from COVID, or some financial difficulties as well. But these are only educated guesses. Something else in line with this transit may occur instead. With astrology, we can pretty accurately show what the weather is. We can have a weather report. But exactly what will happen, it's like in quantum physics. We don't exactly know where the particle is going to be when that wave function collapses. But the wave function is the weather report. It gives us the probability of this happening or that happening or something else occurring. So whatever happens, I'm sure it will be in line with transiting Pluto, being conjunct natal Moon for 2.5 months. Maybe one of the things I've mentioned here, or it may be something entirely different. Also, President Biden may experience increased pressures or sorrows between March and June, since transiting Pluto will square his Moon at 0+ degrees Taurus. Now, in his chart, the Moon rules the 8th house. That's rather ominous, but it's in the 5th house, which rules children. Thus, it might be issues surrounding his son Hunter that he will have to deal with during this period. It's always difficult for me to pinpoint exactly what will happen with President Biden, simply because he's been through a lot of adversity in his life, and consequently, he's learned how to deal with adversity. Thus, many a time I've seen a difficult aspect, a difficult transit in his chart, which might be devastating to other people. But in his case, he's able to often take it in a stride and adapt to it and deal with it in a positive way. And I hope that that is the case this time. In contrast to Biden would be Donald Trump's chart. He doesn't seem to have developed any skills in his lifetime for effectively dealing with adversity, aside from just ranting a lot and launching a lot of lawsuits. Consequently, whenever I see some difficult transit going on his chart, I always know it's going to be a difficult time in life for him. And so far, that has been the case. Okay, hitting closer to home, transiting Pluto will spend much of this spring in close conjunction with my midheaven at 1+ degrees Aquarius. Oy gewalt. Well, that will transform my status professionally, and hopefully it will all be for the better. And maybe that's why I'm giving more talks to people these days. So hopefully this will bring good things to me and not bad things. Okay. The best day of the month will occur toward the end, and that's going to be March 28th. Remember, the middle of the month, that's probably going to be pretty tense due to some Mars aspects. But from March 28th through April 6th, we're going to have Mars, Mercury, Saturn, and the lunar nodes creating a kite formation that can reduce tensions. And let's see, I've got this labeled April 5th. Actually, this is April 3rd, just sort of halfway in between this period. And you can see this kite is going to be in effect throughout this period from March 28th through April 6th. The only fly in the ointment is the strong square between transiting Mercury at 0 degrees Taurus and Pluto at 0 degrees Aquarius. However, things may work out a little bit more positively this time since Pluto has entered Aquarius and is not in Capricorn, where it adds some strength and power to authoritarian leaders. Possibly this may be just some discussion within NATO or the European Union regarding how it should now proceed with respect to the conflict in Ukraine. So let's just hope things work out for the best. And later on, I'm going to change the date from April 5th to April 3rd. Okay, here are my conclusions. Based upon what we've seen astrologically, I have the following expectations for March 2023 and beyond. Much of what is happening now is a playing out of the January 2020 Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, which brought us about problems with pandemics and dictators, and the December 2020 Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius promises a new beginning for freedom, democracy, technology, global cooperation, and collaborative learning. The almost 3-year sojourn of Saturn in Pisces will likely bring about major political changes for both America and Russia. The Jupiter-Chiron conjunction in Aries will bring something into the world that's both transcendent and enduring, but we may not be aware of it for several years. A mid-March square of Mars and Neptune presents a heightened risk of violence and fanaticism for a few days. The mid-March opposition of Chiron to natal Saturn in the July 1776 charts could bring about some wounding for America. And it remains to be seen whether the benefic Jupiter lessens the pain or simply amplifies that wounding, or both. And Pluto's long sojourn through Aquarius will ultimately be beneficial, but its lingering at 0+ degrees Aquarius this year will be a very critical point in history. So, is 2023 the beginning of the age of Aquarius? Technically, no, because the astrological ages are brought about by a slow rotation of constellations, known as the precession of the equinoxes, and not by transits. However, even though no one knows when the age of Aquarius will actually begin, most astrologers feel that we are now on the threshold of it. And Pluto's transit through Aquarius will bring a lot of that Aquarian energy to the forefront. Furthermore, if you live in Alice Springs, Australia, then at the time of the October 29th, 2023 lunar eclipse, notice that the moon is in the 7th house, and Jupiter aligns with Mars. To align means to be in a straight line with something. Thus, maybe this could be the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Now, I put in parentheses that this is a joke, whoops, because not everyone always knows when I'm joking, so this is just a joke. Nonetheless, good luck, Alice Springs, Australia. Okay, and finally, here is Doc Benton's Red Yarn Conspiracy Board. We had a whole bunch of conjunctions occurring at 22 degrees Capricorn over the past few years, the biggest one being the Pluto-Saturn conjunction. This has resulted in a global pandemic, Putin wanting to restore the Soviet Union, Putin invading Ukraine, but on the positive side, COVID vaccines being rapidly developed. Then we have the Saturn semisextile Pluto that happened on March 3rd geocentrically. Both the pandemic and the war in Ukraine are entering into a new phase. And I've got the word enter misspelled here. Whoops, one more thing for me to correct. Then on March 7th, we have Saturn entering Pisces, where it's going to be co-present with Neptune for the next 3 years. That is really going to stir up things in Russia and America. Russia may collapse, America may restore and strengthen its democracy. Around mid-March, we have Jupiter conjunct Chiron on March 11th. Something wonderful will happen, probably involve individual spirituality, spiritual but not religious, and spiritual warriors. And whatever wonderful thing occurs, we may know about it soon, or it may even be several years before we become aware of it. But based on past history, something wonderful will occur of this nature. March 17th, we have Chiron opposition US Saturn. And then the summer, we have a near conjunction of transing Chiron with natal Chiron in the United States chart. That's going to bring about a heightened risk of some sort of wounding for America. And then starting on March 23rd, we have Pluto moves into Aquarius. It stays at 0+ degrees Aquarius for the next 2.5 months. That is going to activate past conjunctions of Mars and Saturn, Jupiter and Saturn, and Venus and Mars at this point. All of this represents our global response to COVID, NATO response to the war in Ukraine, a new age of ideas, an age of invention, and globalism and power to the people, moving away from power concentrated in individuals to the people. And that's it. That's all, folks. And you can find a link to this video and also a slide of my entire presentation, links to part 1 and part 2 of my videos at www.docbenton.com. Just go down to the mundane astrology section, and it'll probably be the most recent entries right at the bottom. I have kind of a messy web page, but there's a lot of stuff on it. So if you spend some time there, you might find some stuff of interest to you if you're interested in either astrology, mathematics, or rabbinic literature. And with that, I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Okay, and here I am again. And so that's it for this presentation. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you find it very useful. So remember to keep dreaming dreams, having visions, bringing those dreams and visions into reality, and keep planting seeds for a better future, and keep praying, meditating, and visualizing world peace. And I'll talk with you later. So long.